Morning to a breaking news story, and that's in relation to figures that Fianna Fail have obtained. That is in relation to jobs being created by the IDA across the country. Now let me give you some of these figures. Kildare, 10,313 jobs. That's 5.5% of the entire country. That's IDA jobs last year. Now other counties, for example, let's see, Dublin, 41.3%, Clare 3.5%, Limerick 4.7% of the jobs created by the IDA last year went to Limerick. Let's have a look at Wicklow. 1.2%, 2,211 jobs. And those figures were just released yesterday afternoon. We're going to talk to Pat Casey, the Fianna Fail TD, in a second. Give me your views on these issues. 087 77 11 103, 0818 303 103. My phone lines are open between now and 10 o'clock. Pat Casey, good morning to you.
Good morning, Niall. How are you this morning?
Very good, thank you, and thanks for joining us. Those figures, as I say, were unearthed by your party, by your job spokesman, Niall Collins, yesterday, and maybe they will be proving what people have been saying in recent weeks and months, that if jobs are being created, they're not coming to Wicklow. Why?
Well, I suppose this has always been the long-term battle, I suppose, with Wicklow. I've spoken this on many times on the morning programme with Declan in relation to the IDA and the return on jobs for Wicklow, and I suppose in relation to the previous government who said that we're looking for a balanced recovery and to spread the wealth. It actually hasn't happened, and this has confirmed that. And it is a worrying statistic that Wicklow only got 1.2% of the jobs from the IDA, and it needs to be addressed moving forward now.
And I mean, as I mentioned there, Pat, with those figures, 43% of those jobs, almost half of those jobs are in Dublin. I mean, does that not illustrate this two-tier recovery? It's Dublin versus the rest of the country. Yeah,
and I suppose that's what Niall has unearthed. No matter what the government are saying, this proves that there is a two-tier recovery. I suppose what's more worryingly from a Wicklow perspective is how successful Kildare have been in getting to 5.5% or 10,000 jobs, where we're lagging way behind them, and our next door neighbour Dublin is well in the 40s. Something needs to be done, and in relation to how the IDA approach the multi-internationals when they come in, how they claim that they only land them in the country, and after that it's up to the companies themselves. I honestly think now the IDA need to step in, to try and prioritise locations outside of Dublin, because this also ties in with the NTA strategy that I probably spoke about a number of times in the Dáil, and the impact that's having on job creation in Wicklow. And that document clearly states that they want to continue to force the jobs into Dublin city centre, or into Dublin and inside the M50 commuter belt.
But to be fair, Pat, and look, I know a lot about constituencies in my work as a political correspondent, but the TDs in this county get on quite well. You get on well with the Fine Gael TDs, Andrew Doyle and Simon Harris. You get on well with Stephen Donnelly and John Brady. Can you not all work together as 5 TDs here, take party politics out of it, and let's start getting more jobs to Wicklow?
I think, Niall, in fairness, I fully agree with what you're saying, and that's the approach that we will be taking. I think we all have agreed that just before we broke up in the summer, that the job creation in Wicklow has to be addressed, and it did come in light of a meeting with Minister Shane Ross in Bray Council there just before we broke, that we have to work together in relation to Wicklow, and we will do that. But I think there's something fundamentally else wrong in relation to how the IDA operates, and I think we do need to address that. And while they continue to say that they don't influence the location of the properties, they significantly do, or the location of the businesses, they must do when you look at stats like that. Now, the other thing, I don't want to scaremonger or do anything. I have to compliment the IDA in the work they are doing. They're trying to secure a replacement for Merck Sharp Dome in Rathdrum, and hopefully within a few months we will have the solution to that. So, there's the other side of it as well, and I don't want to, completely come out against the IDA, but I do in relation to job creation and promoting Wicklow as a destination for jobs. They need to do that.
Yeah, and just to remind people about these figures, so these are the IDA figures. They relate to 2015. The total amount of jobs created are brought by the IDA across the country, 187,056 jobs. Quite an impressive number. It's going to bring down unemployment. But when you look at the figures to Wicklow, we get 1.2% of those figures, and we are lagging behind so many other counties indeed. Pat, just before we do let you go, you're making the long trip to County Carlow on Monday for your Fianna Fail think-in. Is mood good in the camp? Do you think we're facing a situation where there will be a Fianna Fail government within months and Micheál Martin is going to unseat the Kenny as Taoiseach?
I don't think, Niall, in fairness to the parliamentary party think-in next Monday and Tuesday, that's actually on the agenda. I think Fianna Fail has clearly set out its stall early on in the confidence and supply that we did agree with the current government. We're here to provide stability and act responsible in our role in opposition, and we will continue to do that. So I don't think, in fairness, that's on the agenda. The parliamentary party thinking is clearly focusing on a couple of main topics, one being housing. The other one is we have a detailed number of presentations in relation to the potential impact of Brexit, which is another huge concern for the country moving forward, because none of us really understand what Brexit is and the impact that will have. But what it does do, it creates uncertainty.
And you did mention, Pat, acting responsibly. Is doing a 360 U-turn on water charges called acting responsibly? Fairness, is that not what Fianna Fail has done here?
No, in fairness, I think Micheál Martin set it out fairly clearly in relation, and if you go back to the general election just gone by, we were in favour of the suspension of water charges and indeed the abolition of Irish water. And I think Micheál Martin made it quite clearly in relation to the revenue received from domestic water charges is quite minuscule in the overall scheme of things. And we must take that into account. The biggest revenue for Irish water is not in water charges from domestic water, or indeed from commercial water, where they earn about 370 million, is actually from the connection fees for development to take place. And that's on the radar too, because that is quite significant. That can be up to 16,000 per house.
Yeah, so now Fianna Fáil's policy is that water charges will be paid for in the future and infrastructure will be paid for general taxation. It does seem that you're changing your position.
In relation to the infrastructure, now let's be quite clear. Domestic water charges was only bringing in net at the moment 80 million. Commercial water was bringing in 370 million. But the big one that nobody has ever addressed, or nobody has ever spoken about, the connection fees, the potential connection fees of 16,000 per new residential unit to Irish Water, and we build 30,000. Work out the sums on that, and you're in the 750 to 800 million mark figure. That's where Irish Water are going to get the main one. So, and then you look at the domestic water of 80 million. It's not that significant in the overall scheme of things.
Okay, Pat. Listen, Pat Casey, Fianna Fail TD. Listen, very best of luck at that thinking, and thank you for bringing us details of those IDA figures. And as we were talking to Pat there, it seems that Wicklow is lagging behind. I think the IDA are going to have to answer questions in terms of whether this recovery is spreading. But we're going to be talking Junior Cert next.